Hello. Thank you so much. I printed this smaller than I usually do, so I'm hoping I can see it. All right. So, so I'm going to tell the story about doing this movie, Cliffhanger. Can I ask, did anyone see this movie? Okay, a few people. Okay. So just for those of you who didn't, I was in the opening sequence, and I'm a mountain climber. My boyfriend and I are stuck 4,000 feet on top of a mountain, and Sylvester Stallone comes to rescue us. We have to go across this wire to an adjacent peak, and my harness breaks as I'm out there, and he comes out to rescue me, and I fall to my death. That's how the movie opens. So I'm only in the movie for like 10 minutes. But the scene is it's really, for people who've seen it, they have a really visceral reaction to it. It's really hard to forget. So people still, whenever I mention that movie, if they've seen it, people are like, oh my God, that scene, I still remember how scary that was, especially if you're afraid of heights. So when I auditioned for the role in the casting office, I obviously had just to act terrified, since I was standing on a couch instead of the side of a mountain. And I remember that when I left the office, my legs just kind of gave out, and I was trembling, and I realized that my body didn't know that I was pretending. And so it was responding in this traumatized way from my audition. When I was offered the role, there was this caveat that there was one stunt that they wanted me to agree to do myself before getting the part. And that involved actually being up on the 4,000-foot peak, and to get there, I would need to be dangling out of a hovering helicopter on a rope, and someone would be there to grab me and lock me into the mountain so I wouldn't fall off. So I checked out the stunt coordinator, and I talked to him, and he talked me through the whole thing, and I agreed to do it, and the part was mine. So off I went to Italy, which was standing in for Colorado, which was fine with me. I was booked for 1 week with the 2nd unit up in the Italian Alps, Cortina d'Ampezzo, working with Stallone's stunt double, because Stallone was afraid of heights and never got off the ground. And 1 week in the famed Cinecittà Studios in Rome, which was built by Mussolini, and where Ben-Hur was filmed and all the Fellini movies. Very famous place. It was thrilling to walk through those doors. And I ended up, instead of the 2 weeks, being on the shoot for 3 months. But Cortina was not a bad place to be stuck. Base camp for the shoot was only accessible by helicopter, and whenever the weather looked iffy, we would have to rush and pack up and evacuate the set. They eventually made t-shirts for us that read, "2nd unit, we don't rap, we evac." Because I spent so much time with the stunt guys, who were the best climbers in the world, I eventually got acclimated to the heights, which were absolutely dizzyingly terrifying at first. There was a rope bridge that was hung between the 2 peaks, so we could go back and forth to the base camp, and it was a rope and slats, and you could see through them, and literally 4,000 feet off the ground. And I hated that bridge, and I didn't cross it unless it was absolutely required, like hot chocolate at craft service. The high wire line was rigged up for my rescue scene, but it was also used for cameramen to shoot other sequences, and I eventually got talked into going out there. First in the camera cage, and then in a climbing harness, just like my character does, although this one, I was assured, would not break. Now, I can't begin to express the terror of that level of exposure. It's something that most human beings will never, ever have to face. The wire between 2 peaks, a little climbing harness, 4,000 feet below, just space as far as you could see. Yes, I had to be brave. Eventually, though, like most things, I got used to it. We'd zip out there to watch them film the bad guys being blown off the mountain, and by the time they got to shooting my scene, it was obvious to everyone that I wouldn't be needing a stunt double on that wire. In fact, I had to try to call upon my initial terror that I first felt in order to be convincing. On the first take, my harness breaks on cue. I had another one under my costume that actually was the one that was holding me. And I start yelling and crying that I'm falling. That was what was written in the script. And the director yells, "Cut, get her out of there!" And this SWAT team of stunt guys race out on the wire, and they grab me and they pull me to safety, and I get thrown down at the director's feet, and I look up and I'm like, "Why did you cut?" He said, "Well, I thought you were in trouble." I said, "It was acting. Okay, from now on, if I'm in trouble, I'll say, I'm in trouble, get me down. That will be our code. Sorry. So eventually the exciting day came when I moved down to Rome to shoot with Sylvester Stallone in the first unit. Everyone had watched my footage. They were just amazed that I had done all these stunts by myself. And when I walked onto that famous soundstage, everyone applauded. It was the most gratifying feeling to be recognized like that because really what I did was not easy. I'm introduced to Stallone. The script supervisor comes over and tells me that because I was the only one up there, if something didn't appear to be matching, I had to let them know just for continuity's sake. So Rennie Harlan, who is the director, sets up the first shot and says to Sly, you say this line, you hook her in, you cross in front of the wire, and you send her off. So I pipe up, sorry, but if it's going to match, he hooked me in, and then he went behind the wire and then sent me off if it matters. Stallone turns and looks at me and with what can only be described as disgust and says, why don't you shut the fuck up? What, did you write this fucking script? I was so horrified that I couldn't even speak. I look at the script supervisor who had told me to speak up about matching, and she looks down and just takes some notes in her script. I turned to the director for help. Nothing. I was later told that Stallone hated me because I was a constant reminder that he didn't have the balls to do what I did. And it apparently incensed him. Every chance he had, he would put me down in front of the crew, refuse to rehearse with me, and blame me when he messed up shots. And no one was brave enough to stick up for me. It went from being the best shoot of my life to the worst. And though I was brave enough to face that mountain, it turns out that I wasn't brave enough to face the movie star. And as much as I wanted to, as well as everyone else did on the set, I'm sure, I never said a word in my defense. The definition of bravery is courageous behavior or character. I certainly had one of those down at least, but Stallone, he was 0 for 2. When the movie was released, Stallone went on all the talk shows bragging about how he did all of his own stunts. On The Tonight Show, which I watched, he actually said that when he arrived on the soundstage after doing all the stunt work on the mountain, the entire crew gave him a standing ovation for being so brave. Yeah, that happened, but not to him. When I first saw the film after finally getting over the fact of my enormous double chin after being 3 months in Italy, I was amazed at how realistically they were able to make it look like Stallone was right there with me on that wire. Jesus H, I didn't have to hang my ass out on that mountain. Not that I regretted it, but I was amazed at how well they were able to simulate that we were both up there. And I suppose after a time that he might actually have believed that he was up there with me. I've never worked with a movie star before or since who is as mean and nasty as he was. And no one was even close. Everyone's actually been really nice. I did hear that he had to use a pump to get an erection because of all the steroids. And I'm not proud of the fact that that gave me a twinge of satisfaction. I'm also not proud of the fact that I didn't speak up to him myself back then. And if that were today, I most certainly would defend myself. But we can only really take solace in this life from the challenges we faced, how we behaved, and if we were brave. Thank you.